When the cannons of World War II fell silent in Europe, the echoes of a different kind of thunder still rumbled through the U.S. Army. It wasn't the sound of artillery, but of truck engines, thousands of them. This was the sound of the Red Ball Express, a logistics operation born from desperation that would forever change the face of modern warfare. What began as a chaotic, cobbled-together convoy system in the aftermath of D-Day became a masterclass in operational efficiency. It proved a fundamental truth that generals still live by today. Mobility, not just firepower, is what wins wars. As General Omar Bradley famously put it, our armies could only advance as far as the Red Ball trucks could reach. And he was right. The fate of the Allied advance rested on the shoulders of the men who drove those trucks. Before the Red Ball Express, logistics was often an afterthought. But from August to November 1944, this operation changed everything. In just over 80 days, its drivers hauled more than 412,000 tons of supplies, fuel, food, ammunition, and spare parts across a battlefield stretching over 700 miles. They transformed a logistical nightmare into a highway to victory, and in doing so, they laid the foundation for a new military doctrine: logistics as a strategic weapon. After the war, the Army's Quartermaster Corps meticulously studied every aspect of the Red Ball Express, every mile driven, every mechanical failure, every delay. Their findings became required reading at the Command and General Staff College. Out of these lessons, a revolutionary idea emerged: decentralized logistics. Instead of waiting for requests from the front lines, supplies could be continuously pushed forward, keeping the Army's momentum alive. This transformed the U.S. military into a flexible, long-range force that could sustain operations deep in enemy territory. The Red Ball Express also pioneered the concept of 24-hour convoy operations. Planners quickly realized a simple, brutal truth: trucks that stopped were targets. Trucks that kept rolling survived. This principle of continuous movement to reduce vulnerability would directly influence convoy tactics more than half a century later in conflicts like Iraq and Afghanistan. But the legacy goes even deeper. The Red Ball Express fundamentally changed how the Army viewed transportation itself. The U.S. Transportation Corps, officially formed in 1942, was operationally forged on the dusty roads of France. Its motto, "Nothing happens until something moves," is a direct tribute to the hard-won lessons of those convoys. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering. At its peak, the Express ran over 6,000 trucks, burning nearly 300,000 gallons of fuel every single day. This relentless demand forced engineers to innovate, leading to better tires, more efficient engines, and improved radio communication systems for convoys. One of the most critical lessons was the importance of redundancy. The Express suffered heavy losses not just from enemy attacks, but from sheer mechanical fatigue and human exhaustion. The solution was to build backup systems for everything: fuel lines, command relays, and vehicle maintenance. This focus on redundancy and standardization would become a cornerstone of Cold War logistics planning. When war broke out in Korea in 1950, the Army's supply doctrine had the fingerprints of the Red Ball all over it. Many of the officers who had commanded convoys through Normandy were now organizing massive supply runs from Pusan to the Yalu River. They applied their experience, creating what became known as the rolling pipeline. This system, with trucks operating on fixed routes with designated refueling and radio checkpoints, was a direct descendant of the Red Ball model. Despite Korea's brutal terrain and weather, U.S. supply lines maintained a near-continuous flow of critical materials, a feat that astonished military planners. Official Army reports repeatedly cited the Red Ball Express as the conceptual foundation for their success in Korea. The influence didn't stop there. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. military implemented route packages, segmented highways under constant truck movement. This was another evolution of the Red Ball's rotating convoy principle, built on the simple philosophy: if you control the flow, you control the fight. But perhaps the greatest contribution of the Red Ball Express was psychological. It proved that a seemingly impossible logistical challenge could be overcome with sheer determination, discipline, and coordination. This can-do mindset became embedded in the DNA of U.S. military logistics. At the U.S. Army Transportation Museum in Fort Eustis, Virginia, a weathered Red Ball sign, a red circle on a white background, still hangs. This was the emblem that guided thousands of trucks through the mud and smoke of France. A plaque beneath it reads, "They delivered victory 1 mile at a time." It's no exaggeration. Without the Red Ball Express, General Patton's tanks would have run out of gas, his Third Army stranded and unable to exploit its breakthroughs. The success of this improvised highway convinced military thinkers that logistics wasn't just a supporting role. It was the beating heart of the Army. By 1952, the Pentagon had formally incorporated these lessons into its doctrine. Field manuals began using terms like continuous flow resupply and mobile logistics corridors, concepts born on the battle-scarred roads of the French countryside. Even NATO's military highway network in Europe, designed to move troops and armor from the English Channel to the Rhine in hours, was modeled on the Red Ball routes. As the Cold War intensified, this logistical thinking proved critical. The Berlin airlift of 1948 was, in many ways, the Red Ball Express of the skies, relentless, organized, and overwhelmingly efficient. Decades later, the same mindset fueled Operation Desert Storm, where U.S. forces moved 500,000 soldiers and 7 million tons of equipment across 8,000 miles in mere weeks. Every successful U.S. military campaign since World War II bears the ghostly fingerprints of the Red Ball Express. It's been called the most important truck convoy in history. Yet, the men who drove those trucks, the vast majority of whom were African-American soldiers serving in a segregated army, never saw themselves as heroes. They were mechanics, drivers, and dispatchers doing an extraordinary job under impossible conditions. Their battlefield wasn't a beachhead or a trench. It was the open road, a ribbon of mud, dust, and constant danger stretching from Normandy to the Rhine. And in their steady hands, they held the power to sustain an entire army. The Red Ball Express taught a timeless lesson. Wars are won not only by strategy and courage, but by momentum. And momentum requires motion. Every gallon of fuel, every crate of ammunition, every box of rations delivered on time was a blow against the enemy. Today, at logistics schools like Fort Lee, officers study the Red Ball Express not as a historical relic, but as a living doctrine. The trucks are long gone, but the road they built, both literal and symbolic, still carries the weight of history. The Red Ball Express wasn't just a convoy. It was a revelation that victory travels on wheels and freedom often rides in the back of a truck. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. See you in the next one.